Good afternoon, everyone. You are in the spotlight with me, Brian Gardner, for this Friday, October the 30th, 2015, the day before Halloween. And in the spotlight 411 here, coming at you for our Football Blitz show here. Our second edition of the Football Blitz, formerly known as the former in the Spotlight Football Friday. Hope your day is treating you well. Hope you're all enjoying your Friday, close to the weekend here, close to a Halloween weekend here, and a weekend where the clocks will fall back an hour and all those usual fallish things. All right, so here we are for yet another Football Friday, another Football Blitz. So you all know the drill, even those of you that are newer fans that just found us here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube, where we've been we're completing our second week here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube. For even our newer fans, I think you know the drill after checking us out last Friday. For those that haven't checked, that don't know what we do on this show, basically what we do is we look back at the previous week's NFL games, look ahead to the upcoming weekend, and then we usually discuss, providing that the show is on after the Thursday night football game. We usually talk about last night's Thursday night football game, and then we usually end the show with some college football discussion, which is basically us highlighting the big games coming up this weekend. That's the format we will use again here this week. We'll start off by talking about last week, looking ahead to this week, talk about Thursday night football and, of course, college football. If you'd like to have your voice heard and give us your thoughts on the NFL, college football, or whatever it is you want to give your thoughts about, you can do so by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. And make sure you use the hashtags, hashtag itspotlight411, hashtag itsfootballblitz, or you can also use the hashtag its5. That is for our 5th anniversary as a podcast. You can also check us out on Facebook, search for In the Spotlight 411, and once you find us on Facebook, make sure you like our page. All right, so let's get right down to business here on this Friday, the 30th here, as we are now entering, crazy to even think about this, we are now entering the 7th week of the football season, and this an unbelievable. It's unbelievable how quickly the season goes. I don't know about you. I don't know about most of you, but when I was younger, and I'm approaching 30 here now, but when I was younger, it seemed like the fall used to be, to me, even longer than the winter for some reason. Like, people always say, "Oh, the winter seems so long." Oh, the fall to me was always far more longer. To me, that's my opinion. It just seemed longer, and you got to remember something too. For me, growing up, I was not a football fan. I wasn't a football fan. I was a basketball fan. I was a baseball fan. I didn't get into football until right around junior high. Actually, end of junior high is when I got into football, and yeah, that's just the way I was. I just wasn't a big football guy, and got into it and started enjoying it. I've watched it ever since. Watched classic games, all that. And maybe that's why, because if you don't like football in the fall, okay, if you don't like football in the fall, you're pretty much out of luck. Because you got baseball for September, but then even with college basketball starting in November, like, college basketball doesn't really get going. They've done better in recent years of making more meaningful, important games early in the season, but college basketball in earnest doesn't get going until January. It's like a 2-month season. You get conference play, and then for 2 months it's down, and you got the tournament, and then it's over. It's like blink and you miss it. But if you don't like football in the fall, then there's nothing to get you through it. If you do like football, then every week you look forward to, and think about the culture we live in now, where you got an NFL game on Thursday, and then you have Sunday NFL games, and a game on Monday night. So you got 3 nights a week where you're going to get an NFL game. And then there's the fact that, like, if you get like a holiday week, like Thanksgiving week, then you got like a week where you get like games, multiple games on Thursday. You get, and then Sunday. The culture we live in now, there are some weeks where we get NFL games. I remember, I think Christmas Eve, I think, what was it, last year or the year before, they had like a double header on Christmas Eve. Which was just which again, the more games they can get and span them out, the better. That's what the league's going to do. It's become the biggest sport, the biggest professional sport in this country. There was a time when that was baseball. Now it's football. So, it's just remarkable. Like I said, now if you're a football fan, that gets you through the fall. It gets you through the fall. It makes everything go a lot quicker, and it gets you through the fall. I want to make a quick correction. We're not going into week 7 this week. We're going into week 8. We just completed week 7, which is, again, it's incredible. We're halfway through the season. We're at the halfway point of the season. And, before we get to that point, let's go back to week 7 here. Again, it's remarkable to think about. And just, a week of some demoralizing losses, I think, is the headline. Because there were some teams that suffered some demoralizing losses in week 7. And not necessarily, I wouldn't say they were necessarily close losses. They're just losses in general. And if you go around the league, there were several. I think the biggest one, even though, again, it depends on how much you expect from the Bills. And I think the way that they started the season, maybe there was a group of people, maybe myself included, that thought maybe, this team was a wild card team. They still could be. But anytime you lose to a team like the Jaguars, I know this is a neutral field game, and I know, playing in London, I understand that. And, I've seen a lot of Bills fans mention, there was a travel. Look, both teams have to travel. And the Jaguars are the Jaguars, okay? They're the worst team in football. No disrespect to Jaguars fans, but that's the worst team in football. I know they already had a win, but that's because they basically got a gift. Okay? Their defense, I think we mentioned, their defense isn't bad, okay? But they can't score the ball at all. They're just not a good team. They can defend a little bit, and that keeps them sometimes in games longer than they should be, but they're not a good football team. But the Bills come in, and you're thinking, all right, this is a game for them to kind of get back on track a little bit here. This team's not going to score a lot. Their defense doesn't have to do a whole lot. Even their offense doesn't have to do a whole lot. Well, they get a field goal out of the top. And then they give up 27 points in the second quarter. 27 points in a quarter of football. There is no justification for that. This is the Jaguars. The Jaguars, if you're lucky if they go 3 games and score 27 points combined in 3 games, and let them have 27 points. The same team that shut down the Colts in week 1. That nearly came back to beat the Patriots in week 2. The same team. It's unfathomable to me. Now you hear some Bills players are upset with their role on the team. And, of course, now when you're losing, now all of a sudden guys start complaining. But a couple of weeks ago when you were winning, everybody's like, oh, we love it, we love it, we love it. That's what losses can do to you. That's what a season starting to come apart can do to you. It also shows you how things can change in a season, even though it's only a 16-week season. That's why you look at the season in spurts. I've mentioned this before. Every 4 weeks, it's a phase. Phase 1, that evaluatory phase, that introductory phase, getting your feet wet, chemistry, etc. Phase 2, Weeks 5 through 8 is about getting yourself in a position, seeing what kind of team you have. Are you going to be competitive? Are you not? You got the trade deadline. You want to make sure, see what you have. Weeks 9 through 12 is all about, staying competitive, getting yourself in position, taking the high gear, getting yourself ready for the stretch run. It's also that 4-week period where you kind of start weeding out the teams that really aren't true competitors. And then the final 4 weeks of the season, which is the stretch run. The Bills in the first phase of the season did good. Not great, but good. Highlighted by the Colts win. And in this second phase of the season, they've been abysmal. Now, it has not been helped by the fact that their quarterback Taylor's been out. But you know what? For all intents and purposes, okay, you look at this game. The Bills scored 31 points in this game, 18 in the fourth. A team that can defend the football. The Bills' offense this week wasn't the problem. It was their defense. Your defense gave up 34 points. The Bills came back in this game because of their offense, and they still lost because their defense couldn't shut it down. And the defense is the one thing you thought you'd get with the Bills. With Rex Ryan at the coaching position, the defense was the thing in the first couple of weeks that was what was keeping them in games. Well, they had a rookie quarterback. So it's the thing that you thought was your strength is what cost you this week. And that's what makes this a demoralizing loss. It's just unbelievable to me. Unbelievable to me when teams lose games that they should not lose, and they lose them because of the thing that's their strength. And the defense of the Bills is their strength. And they lost this game because of their defense. It was demoralizing. Good for the Jaguars. They got 2 more wins than we thought they'd get at this point. But this was a demoralizing loss for the Bills. And now you got people on the team saying, "Oh, I don't like my position." You know what? You'd like it just fine if you were winning. You keep your mouth shut if you were winning. And you know it's got to hurt them that Doug Marrone was the offensive line coach for the Jaguars, and that they just beat them. They just beat the Bills. Doug Marrone, former Bills coach, left last year with all that controversy, and his offensive line was key in that victory. They protected the quarterback. And that was huge. Huge. So that hurts the Bills in more ways than one. So the Bills, a demoralizing loss. Now they dropped to 3-4. Speaking of demoralizing losses, the Colts, who now are also 3-4. I don't know what we can say. Now you gotta watch the Colts, because this thing can implode quick. This is a team that almost got to the Super Bowl last year. They got knocked out in the AFC title game. This is a team that has an all-star pro quarterback in Andrew Luck, who, despite everything, is performing admirably. This is a team that has a lot of offensive weapons, but for some reason, the one thing they did not think about was protecting their quarterback. And the offensive line of the Indianapolis Colts is a joke. And I know Andrew Luck, he's mobile and all that stuff he can make, but you got to protect the quarterback. If you do not protect the quarterback in this league, you are dead in the water. And that's what's happening to the Colts. The Colts defense has actually done extremely well this year. It's been much improved this year, despite the fact that it really shouldn't be. Their defense has kept them in a lot of games they've lost. The Colts defense has been good. The offense has been down because not protecting Andrew Luck. Saints got out of the gate great. Now this week, I think you can say the defense just didn't do good. But here's the problem. Colts couldn't stay on the field. Offensively, they could not stay on the field. They were turning the ball over, which has been a problem for them in the past. It wasn't so much this year, but now it is. Penalties have been also a problem for them. But turning the ball over came as a problem that was a big thing last year that came back to rear its head. Couldn't protect the quarterback. Those issues kept the defense on the field a lot more. And even if their defense is much improved, the more you put it on the field, it's gonna be exploited. It's not that good of a defense. Saints had it on the field. The one the Colts would have liked, they were able to exploit it. You credit the Colts for staying in that game and getting back into it late, but it wasn't enough. Saints win 27-21. And it's a huge win for the Saints because it's probably a win that early in the season they might not have thought they would get on the road. It's probably a win they would never thought they'd get. But they got it. And now the Saints are right back in it at 3-4. Their season right now, if they to me, one more win, you're at 500. You know, I mean, your season can be salvaged now. And to get this big of a win on the road, kudos. Their first road win. Kudos to the Saints. And the coach, you know, there was a lot of talk after the game about, you know, the GM and Jim Irsay going at it. And I said, you got to watch it now. They might implode because they have their expectations are way too high, are high. And they're at 3-4. They're gonna make the playoffs. They're in a terrible division. They're gonna make the playoffs. But they ain't going much further. They're probably a one and done the way they're playing right now. They're a one and done. That I mean, the AFC. I mean, there's just too many teams. There's too many teams. They're going to regress. I mean, they got to the AFC title game last year. They're going to regress this year. And I said this last week when, you know, with the Colts. Chuck Pagano. I like Chuck Pagano. He's had a bad couple of weeks. I love Chuck Pagano. He's overcome a lot. God bless him. I love Chuck Pagano. But I said a week ago I didn't think he'd get fired. I think he could get fired. I know I don't want to sound like a flip flop here, but I think I think now the way things are going here, I think he can get fired. Especially since the GM and the owner are already at each other's throats apparently over this whole thing. I think he can get fired. I don't want him to be fired. I don't think he deserves to be fired, but I could see it. He shouldn't be. He can't help it. He's just playing with what he's got. If this team had an offensive line, then I think things would be a little bit more different. But they don't. And that's why they're in the position they are. That was a demoralizing loss for Colts, but a big win for the Saints. Another demoralizing loss was for the Steelers, who, you know, had this game right where they wanted it, you know, close, gritty game. And the Chiefs, and look, the Chiefs were bound to win one of these close games eventually. Chiefs just did it up. It was an ugly game. Chiefs win the game against the Steelers 23-13, getting them to 2-5. Steelers dropped to 4-3. First of all, this is a big game in regards to the AFC North because with the Bengals having a bye, that they gained a game on the Steelers, so that's huge. But it's a big win for the Chiefs for trying to salvage their season. The Chiefs are a really good football team. They should not be 2-5, but alas, they are. And it's a tough loss for the Steelers. Now, look, the Steelers at the end of the day, you've had this run and you've kept yourself afloat despite everything. Despite all the injuries, the Roethlisberger, you've kept yourself afloat. It looks like Ben Roethlisberger is going to play this week, so you've kept yourself above 500 while he was gone. That's a good thing. You're right there. Unlike the Cowboys. Cowboys had too many injuries. But you're right there. But it's still a demoralizing loss because you had the kind of game that you wanted. You had a gritty kind of game, defensive in the trenches kind of game, which is a classic Steelers. You know, they might not be the same team defensively they once were, but it's still a classic kind of Steelers game and they lost. But you know what? Is it demoralizing to an extent? Yeah, it is. Because it's right there. I don't know if it's as demoralizing as this for some other teams that we've already mentioned this week as far as demoralizing losses. Like the Colts. Like the Bills. Obviously, it's a big win for the Chiefs. It's a tough loss. Now, the Lions, what happened to them this week was demoralizing. You get out to a 17 to 15 lead. At one point, it's 14-3. And you just let the Vikings dominate the second half and win at 28-19. Now, the Vikings, you got to start to talk about the Vikings because they're 4-2. And the way the NFC's playing, any team above 500 is going to have a good chance at making it because the NFC East is a crapshoot. So the Vikings are in the mix, very much so. It's a huge win for the Vikings. What this loss did was after the Lions finally got their first win. Any dreams of them getting back in this thing are done. And I think most people thought like the Ravens they were done anyway. I think most people thought that, but this officially eliminates them. You're 1-6. That's done. They lost this game at home where they're 1-3. Demoralizing loss. A huge win for the Lions. But yeah, I mean that's you talk and think about this for a second from a demoralizing standpoint too. If you're the Texans or the Titans, you look at what's going on with the Colts and you think, wow, maybe if we start playing better, we could sneak in here. But then you're the Texans and you drop a game to the Dolphins 44-20. How about the Dolphins? Now, they lost last night, but how about the Dolphins saving their season? They're now a 500 team. They can actually sneak in. They're right there with the Bills now. So that's demoralizing for the Texans because they're looking at this thinking, oh, boy, we could play our way back in. We're only a game back of the Colts. Same thing with the Titans. Despite Marcus Mariota being out, and he's going to be out again this week too, you're thinking, oh, yeah, we can get back. We have a chance to as bad as things have been. And then, in the Titans case, they played a very good football team like the Falcons, kept themselves in that game. At one point had the lead. Their defense came up huge, but they lose the game 10-7 late. Heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking. So both those teams dropped games, and they could have gotten even closer to the Colts. And I think in the end, it wouldn't have. The Colts, again, it's just a bad division, but still, I mean, they could have put some really big game pressure, some really big standings pressure on the Colts. So losing those two games, you're a Texans Titans, that's demoralizing. Now, I mentioned, the theme is demoralizing losses. And, I mentioned the Steelers, and I don't know if that was, it's demoralizing because you could have had the game, but I don't think it's as devastating some of the other teams we mentioned. And I feel the same way about this game, too. Jets-Patriots, that was a demoralizing loss for the Jets. But I don't think, it's not gonna crash their season. Just like it won't crash the Steelers' season. The Jets have played above expectations. Played above it. I mean, even with this loss, they're 4-2. I thought I had to sneeze there. Pardon me. You think about it, they answered the bell on the Patriots the entire game. Just came up short. I think the Jets proved themselves to a lot of people this week. Think about it. They were tied going into halftime, had the lead late. Pardon me, they weren't tied going into halftime. They were down 13-10. Then they were up 17-16. I mean, they were right there. They lost by a touchdown. Jets did a great job defensively and offensively. They did a great job. Patriots are just that good. And you have to wonder what would have happened if the Jets were at home. That to me, that Jets Patriots game in New York later in the season is going to be big, because the Jets just proved they can hang with the Patriots. If that game wasn't in New England, I think they might have won that game. Because here's the thing about that game: the Patriots played well and the Jets played well. The Jets did not stay in that game because the Patriots played down to them. The Jets just played well. That bodes well for the future. So, I mean, it's a demoralizing loss. Like the Steelers lost, you lost to a good team. And it's not going to crash your season. The Jets are here. The Jets are here to stay. They've proven themselves. In a tough environment against a tough team, they proved themselves. More than proved themselves. Now, demoralizing. Who else suffered demoralizing losses? The Chargers, who I think we can now say are in a huge bind for their season. They've lost a lot of tight, close games. They lost another one to the Raiders, who are now 3-3. We got to keep an eye on them potentially sneaking in. A lot of people thought the Raiders were kind of like a sleeperish team. Sometimes I think they even picked to beat the Broncos a couple weeks ago. Raiders, 20-point second quarter, leads the charge here as they beat the Chargers 37-29 on the road. The Chargers are 2-2 at home. And again, if you're not going to defend home field, look at the Colts. They've lost 4 games. They lost 3 of them at home. If you're not going to win your home games, you're in trouble. That drastically affects your season. If you're not going to win your home games, you're not going to beat teams that you should beat. It puts you in trouble. Look what the Colts are. Look what the Chargers are. Colts are just being saved by a bad division. Now the Chargers dig themselves a hole. And with how good the AFC is, it's going to be very tough for them to climb out of it. Their defense was not good in this game. They made a nice late charge to get back into it. This wasn't enough, so they lose another close one. That's a demoralizing loss because that probably knocked them out of contention, I think. And they're a good football team. I just think it knocked them probably out of contention. It's just, you're going into week 8 now and you're 2-5. It's not going to get it done. Cowboys in a great Sunday night game. If you're a Cowboy fan, you have to be proud of the way they fought and clawed in this game. The last couple weeks have been rough for them. Their injuries, they've stayed strong through it. There's so many injuries they've had. They fought in this game, and they fought in this game. Their defense did a fantastic job. They did all they could do on offense, but it just was, again, playing on the road in New York, where Giants are 3-1 now at home. It was just too much. They lose the game 27-20. Cowboys are down to 2-4 now. Again, the good thing for the Cowboys is this. This division's still there for them. The Eagles lost this week. The Giants are only 4-3. This division is still there for them. And they might get Dez Bryant back this week. If this division continues to play down, and they can maybe get a couple more wins, if they can stay right, if they can get to 500, at least be at 500, they might stand a chance. The only way they're making the playoffs in that division. But they need a division to keep playing down. If the division keeps playing down, they stay around 500. They could probably sneak in. Especially thanks to their early wins in the season, where they had a couple big wins against the division rivals. And the fact of the matter is, too, if the Cowboys didn't make some of the mistakes they made, they probably would have stuck a win in this game. It would have been huge. Because it would have been 3-3. But it was a great win for the Giants. It's a demoralizing loss for the Cowboys because despite everything, they were in this game, and the mistakes cost them. And this whole weekend of demoralizing losses for teams, either trying to salvage their season or for pride or for competitiveness, or or teams that are in division or playoff hunts. The running theme of demoralizing was there all weekend throughout, and it culminated on Monday night with the Eagles losing to the still unbeaten Panthers 27-16. This is one of those games, though, while it's demoralizing for the Eagles, and it's a tough loss because the Eagles were kind of, fixed some things, have been playing very well. It's a tough loss for the Eagles because I felt like against the great Panthers defense, they played incredibly well. Yeah, they turned over the ball, but you're going to do that. You know, the Panthers defense is just that good. The Eagles defense was great. I think their defense has been great all season. I think they've done a great job. As we said, their defense is underrated, I think, considering they're all the offensive emphasized teams. They're the best defensively, I think. I thought the Eagles played well in this game. I just think the Panthers are that good. I think if you are one of those people, and I don't know how you could be because they beat the Seahawks in Seattle 2 weeks ago. If you're one of these people that still didn't believe in the Panthers, you have to believe in them now. They beaten too many good teams. They're 6-0. You know, defending home field. They're 3-0. This is a tough game for the Eagles to draw right now. It stalled their momentum, but they did a great job. And the only reason why the Panthers, you know, are long gone in terms of the playoffs is because the Falcons are right behind them at 6-1. So you got two really good teams in that division. And the Saints playing their way back into things. So it's a great win for the Panthers. Demoralized for the Eagles because they kept this game very close. They played incredibly well. I think they feel like they played well enough to win this game. And they still came up short by 11. So that's to tell you how good the Panthers are. But yeah, it was a running theme the entire weekend. Demoralizing losses. Teams either trying to play their way, salvage their season, playing for pride, playing for a playoff spot, keeping themselves in contention, you know, needing a big win. There was demoralizing losses all over the map this week. Teams losing to some teams that they really shouldn't be losing to. You know, the week started last Thursday with the Seahawks getting a much-needed win against the 49ers, 20-3. Which, again, the 49ers went back to being a team that can't score. Seahawks just easy, kind of solid win for them in a game that they had. And that was pretty much, you know, in terms of teams needing big wins and such, they were really the only team that got one. And that was the first game of week 7. All the other teams that really needed wins to kind of stay in things and stuff, for the most part, at least the ones we highlighted, didn't do it. So this weekend, this week 7 was what I like to call demoralizing, tough loss weekend. And now you flip the script. And before we do that, let's see how we did on our picks and predictions here for our Pick 6 challenge. Again, for those that don't know what this is, every week we pick 6 NFL games. And by we, I mean my former tech producer who used to be with us when we used to do our shows on Talk Shoe and Blog Talk Radio, and lives in, his name is Jeff Tech. That's his nickname. His real name is just Jeffrey, but we call him Jeff Tech. You know, for the last couple of years, we've done this Pick 6 challenge every week of the NFL season. We pick games. And every week, after we go over the games, we see how we did on predictions. It's a real fun little thing. And, you know, it's a season-long kind of thing. We compete, and it's just for fun. But, yeah. We do this every week. And you know, we go back through it. We go back through the number. We go back through the games and look at the predictions every week, and we total them and see who's still in the lead. And so I probably just had a little brain fart there. So for this week, I went 3-3. Jeff Tech went 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-2. And by the way, Jeff Tech's no longer with the show, but he does send me his picks every week. So that's how we keep it going. I went 3-3. He went 4-2. So through week 7, I am 25-17, and Jeff Tech is 24-18. So he's a game back. So he gained a game on me this week. It was his best week in a while. Last couple of weeks, he had rough weeks. Yeah, so 24 and 20. 24 and 18 for him, 25 and 17 for me. The picks I got right this week were Patriots, Giants, and Cardinals. I got the Lions, the Eagles, and the Colts wrong. He got the Colts and the Ravens wrong, and the Vikings, Panthers, Giants, and Patriots right. He picks the Colts every week. We both. So after he's from Indianapolis, that's kind of his thing. But we both lost on the Colts. And I forgot to mention one game, and I apologize for that. And I guess this could classify under demoralizing. The Ravens, who went in this season, this week, 1-5, on the road in a very tough environment in Arizona, where Arizona is 3-1. Arizona with a big 26-18 win. You know, Ravens kept it close early. Just didn't have enough. And look, a couple plays here or there going the opposite way. The Ravens might have made this even closer, but Cardinals just survived and did enough. And offensively, made the plays they had to make. Defensively, did a very good job. It was a solid win for the Cardinals, but demoralizing because much like the Lions, the Ravens now just doing anything they can to just try to get to 500 and see what happens, both from a pride standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, and now it's very unlikely to happen for both teams. So that's just demoralizing. Again, that was the theme, demoralizing. Just a tough weekend for a lot of teams needing wins for one reason or another. And now we flip the script to week 8. And again, halfway point of the season. And we got week 8 underway last night with a game between the Dolphins and the Patriots, which the Dolphins early on did the best they could to keep it close, but ends up being an easy 36-7 win for the Patriots. Dolphins have played very well over the last couple weeks. They've played themselves back to around 500 and really put themselves back in contention, probably a wild card spot, really. But there's not much else you could say about this game. It was just a formulaic, easy, decent, solid win for the Patriots. And, you know, they're at home, so it's easy for them. 4-0 at home. The Patriots defended their home field. Little stat here for you all. And I was looking this up today. The Patriots are 7-0. And they're averaging 35 points a game. Not many teams have done that. But that's, you know, I said this before the season started, especially with the chip on their shoulder because of all the Tom Brady's. They make the decisions. And, you know, for some, it might be a situation where it's just too much to deal with. The politics, the bias, it might be just too much. Too stressful, and they walk away from it. But I don't think it's in no way, shape, or form easy being on that committee. Nor is it easy being on the tournament selection committee for college basketball. Neither one is. Before we wind down here this afternoon, one of our listeners actually sent me a question. Sent us a question, sent the show a question. I think we're going to make a habit out of this at the end of the show. If I can't find a way to bring a question or comment that's sent in, I'm always checking during the show on the side of my screen. If I can't find a way to kind of address something that's sent into us during the show, if there's something that I think that really needs to be addressed, like something that's a really good topic or something a really good point to make, I'll make sure to bring it up at the end of the show, because we did that last week. I think it worked very well. Sometimes you just can't find a space to bring it, a place to bring it up during the show. So it's better to do it at the end of the show when you can kind of just throw things out there. And this email comes from Lisa in Lexington, Kentucky, and she has a question about the Colts. You mentioned this. You mentioned over the last 2 weeks a lot of talk. You mentioned over the last 2 weeks that the main problem with the Colts seems to be the offensive line. Now, do you think it's possible that the Colts did not feel this was a particular need in the offseason because of the fact that Andrew Luck is not necessarily a quarterback that just stands in the pocket? Now, mind you, Andrew Luck is no Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb. He's not a pure mobile quarterback. However, he has been known to be able to move very well with the ball, and he's always made very solid plays with the ball, even when he's out of the pocket. So maybe the Colts not see this as a priority, and thus did not take the appropriate steps to rectify what is now clearly a problem. Yeah. I think that's a good way to. I think that's probably why it wasn't a priority. Okay, and I can buy it not being a priority. What I cannot buy is not thinking that you should have done something. Okay, I understand their main goal was giving Andrew Luck more weapons on offense, trying to improve the defense. Okay, fine. That's fine. But what I cannot understand, because if you watch the Colts, and I've watched the Colts a lot. I'm a fan of the Colts. I watched the Colts a lot last season. Now, they didn't have as many problems last year, offensive line wise. Okay. But it was still often an issue for them. It was still often an issue. There were games that I watched against really good football teams last year where Andrew Luck got taken down a lot. Now, sure, it might be happening more often this year because of the fact that they're playing better teams. They're playing a more difficult schedule this year. Or it might be it might depend on the team. Again, it depends on the teams you play. You're playing more difficult teams. You're playing better defenses. You might be playing more teams that come after the quarterback. Whereas last year you didn't maybe play as many of those teams, so maybe that's why it's more pronounced. But at the same time, when you played these kind of defenses last year that came after the quarterback, when you played these good elite teams last year that had defense that came after the quarterback, you had issues with this. Something should have been done. And that's probably why the owner and the GM were having a falling out last week after the game saying, why didn't you go do something about this? It doesn't even need to be a free agent. It doesn't even need to be a trade. It could have just been in the draft. There's a lot of good linemen in the draft. Something needed to be done, and it wasn't. Nothing was addressed on the offensive line. And in this culture, in this day and age in the NFL, to not address your offensive line at all, even when you have a good one. I've seen teams that have great offensive lines, and they still every year get at least one or two new good linemen to put on their line. What does that say when even the teams that have good offensive lines every year, every offseason, go out and try to improve it even more? And then in contrast, you have a team in the Colts that has a crappy offensive line that does nothing to help it. We're in a quarterback's league now. You have to protect your quarterback. Not only do you have to have a good quarterback, an elite quarterback, but you have to have protection for your elite quarterback. The NFL has made all these rules to protect quarterbacks, but you also have to have the offensive line to do that too. Your quarterback needs time. If he does not have the time to read the routes, to get the ball to the new offensive weapons that you've acquired, then what's the point? In this day and age in the NFL, it's inexcusable to me that you don't address your offensive line. Inexcusable to me. And I'm not saying, look, you don't have the money, fine, then go draft a guy. Go draft a guy. You need to be cheap about it. Go draft a guy. I mean and that's what I'm saying. You look at these good teams; they do it every year. The Patriots, they all do it every year. Every year, there's new linemen. They go out every year and see if they can make their line even better. Because everybody knows how important it is to protect the quarterback in this league. To give that quarterback time in this league. It's crucial. It's just as crucial as having a quarterback, a good quarterback. It's unbelievable to me that the general manager did not think of that. Oh yeah, let's go get these new receivers. Let's get these new toys. A running back for Andrew Luck. All right, fine, but they need to have time. The running back needs time to freaking run the ball, to get the ball and run it. You don't have time. What's the point? If you don't have time, if you do not protect the quarterback, you do not give the quarterback time, you don't get the running back time, if you don't have a good offensive line, you're dead in the water in the NFL. You are dead in the water. I understand. Like I said, I can see the rationale. Oh, we got a quarterback that can move out of the pocket, moves well with the ball, etc. I understand that, and that's why in your mind you think, all right, I don't have to look at that right away. Especially since the free agents and the players that move the quickest are running backs, wide receivers. So you go after them first. I get that. You needed that. I get that. You needed more offensive weapons. I get that. But as soon as you got all those players, as soon as you addressed getting Andrew Luck more offensive weapons and you helped improve the defense, you should have went to either the draft or you looked around and found whatever offensive lineman could help you on the line and make it even a little bit better. Even if you make it a little bit better, make it better. Do something. Try something. Now, I know somebody say, well, wait a minute, the trade deadline's coming up. Maybe they can make a move. Maybe they can. I hope they can. I hope they do. Problem is, when you try to make a trade in season, everybody knows what you need. Okay, everybody's going to know what you need. They're not going to be. They're going to fleece you for it. They're going to say, well, they're going to make you give up more than you probably would have had to give up if they didn't already know you're desperate to fix this problem. See, because now all the teams around the league are going to know. They're going to say, you know what, the Colts need offensive linemen. Colts need offensive linemen. The Colts call a team up. They're going to say, all right, well, we want this, this, and this. They're not going to give it to you cheap because no, you need it badly. As opposed to before the season when they don't know for sure, they don't know you need it that badly, and they're more willing to make a more reasonable trade. It's just a horrible job by that general manager. Horrible job. I'm not saying it should have been the first thing they addressed, but it should have been addressed, and there's no excuse for it. No excuse at all. And that's why I don't think Chuck Pagano should lose his job for it. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. The fault rests on the general manager. Because if the Colts had a better offensive line, I don't think they lose to the Bills. Yeah, I think it makes that big of a difference in that game. They don't lose to the Jets. I know they got beaten badly by the Bills, but I think that would have made a big difference in that game. They don't lose to the Jets. The Patriots, who knows? They don't lose to the Saints. They're at least sitting here with 5 wins, more than likely. Not to mention the fact, you know what I'm saying? Not to mention the fact that you protect your quarterback from possible injury. He's already been injured this year. Shoulder injury. It puts more wear and tear on your quarterback because he's getting hit more. So you're protecting your quarterback, you're protecting his health, and you're making yourself a better team. And it probably improved the turnovers and the penalty situation too. You got better offensive line. You might not have as many penalties. Turnover-wise, you might not turn over the football because you can make better decisions because have more time to throw the ball or have more time for the play to develop. It improves everything that's gone wrong with the Colts this year if you have a better line. That's as simple as that. We'll see what happens and how it unfolds. The Colts are going to be a big storyline going forward here, just like the Eagles are, because there's signs of tension. There's signs of tension. Which means the situation, much like the Eagles situation, can implode any minute. You never know what loss is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. We got another email from a listener. It's about another issue, and it's something that I probably should address, and it was a big issue. Greg Hardy, former Panther, now Cowboy, got into a little bit of a argument, public argument with Des Bryant, the injured Des Bryant, on the Cowboy sidelines. The Cowboy owner, Jerry Jones, and I'm paraphrasing here, called it showing leadership. Jason Garrett, again paraphrasing here, did not seem as fond of it, and did not try to excuse it, indicating that it wasn't something that he should have done Greg Hardy should have done at that time. Okay, so here's the email from the listener. I just wanted to set up the situation for those that didn't know. After what is your reaction to Greg Hardy's outburst last Sunday, and how did you think that the Cowboys handled it the right way? So that's a basic question. That's a question that no doubt's been answered a million times this week. It's a good question to ask, even though it's been answered by pretty much everybody this week. That's one of the unfortunate negatives to doing a football show that talks about last week's games late in the week, because you're pretty much the last to get to everything. Greg Hardy has a history of issues like this. Okay, he's got no disrespect to him, but it's documented. He's got, he's very passionate. He's very, his temper can get the best of him. And look, being an athlete myself, playing basketball, playing, baseball, etc., I know that there are times when things get heated. Between coach and player, between player and player, between players, coaches, referees, etc. Okay? It happens. All right? I'm not going to judge it. What really bothers me, look, was that the time and the place for Hardy to do that? No. Was that leadership? No. Jerry Jones, and that's really the thing that infuriates me more about this, was Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones's reaction to that and trying to sell that his leadership was a joke. But Jerry does stuff like this all the time. It's just, he thinks he's helping himself PR wise, and he's not. That it just makes him look dumb, and it makes the franchise look dumb. Jason Garrett had a much better reaction. Basically, you know what? Not the time or place. Basically, we're gonna handle it in house. Leave it at that. And if it and really, that's the only way you can handle that. Okay, not the time or place. Heat of the moment. Things were said. It happened. Well, basically, let's monitor it and let's see what happens. If it becomes a bad habit and it keeps happening, then it's a major issue. But having a heated disagreement, and yeah, that is not the time or place, but it does happen. Having a heated disagreement like that at that particular time and on camera, that you don't like it, but it does happen. The camera just happened to catch it. It's unfortunate. I don't think it's that big of a deal, especially for a guy that's done this in the past. He's an emotional person. He does it. You know what? They had a disagreement. No, it's not like they punched each other. It wasn't like a brawl ensued. Okay, things like this happen in the heat of the moment, in the heat of a game. They happen. The only issue I quibble with is Jerry Jones' reaction to it, trying to sell it like as something that it wasn't. That to me is inexcusable. Garrett's reaction was much better. And I don't think it's a problem. I think it could become a problem if it happens more regularly. Then it's not just a heat of the moment thing. Then it's just he's just causing problems. And it's going to start to it can start to form further issues with the team itself, and it could affect the play of the team. I mean, then if it happens with regularity, if it happens publicly with a great deal of regularity, if it happens more than a couple times, then yes, by all means, you have a problem, and it has to be dealt with. Now, I'm sure Jason Garrett's aware of that. His response to it made me feel that he's aware of it and knows it's something that has to be monitored. It was only a one-time thing so far with the Cowboys. Leave it alone for right now. Not the time or place, but leave it alone for right now. You don't want to make a bigger deal out of it than it is. And right now, anybody that's making it a big deal, it's not. I don't care what he's done in the past. It's not a big deal until he does it more regularly with the Cowboys. Doing it once in the heat of the game is not a problem. So don't overblow it. It's a one-time thing. The only one that really outwardly messed this up was the owner. The coach handled it well. The other players handled it well. I'm being interrupted. Sorry. Hopefully it was handled in-house. Hopefully Dez and Greg got together, handled it out, hashed it out. And it's not going to be a thing. If it becomes a thing, like they do it again next week, if it keeps happening, then somebody gets cut or somebody gets suspended or you deal with the issue. But one time it's not going to do it. So, but anybody that's out there thinking it's this chronic problem because Greg Hardy did it on other teams and it's done in the past, again, you take it, everything's isolated, okay? Deal with it separately, separate issues. Separate issues. Because he's on a different team now. He's on the Cowboys now. You want to take things, you got to separate these things, okay? I don't want to put in what he did in the past. He's on the Cowboys. It's his first year on the show. First year on the show. First year on the team. Only been there for a few weeks. Right now, you call this an isolated incident. Take it, once you go to a different team, I think even though you want to keep in mind what he's done in the past, I think you like to think of things differently. I think you like to say, it's starting off fresh. Because you don't know why he might have acted the way he did because of the environment he was in. So now you're on the Cowboys. He's on the Cowboys. Fresh start. Okay, this happens. Don't look back at what he did in the past. Yeah, that's why you monitor it, because of what he's done in the past. But you don't automatically go, okay, he's doing what he did before. Different team now, fresh start. If it continues to happen, then you're like, all right, based on your history, now we know it's not just an isolated thing. It's a concern. It's a concern. And then you have to do something very about it. And that's up to the coach. Don't leave it up to the owner, because he already thinks it's leadership that you blow up at a teammate on the sidelines, which is clearly not. That I couldn't believe that. All Jerry had to sit there and say is, you know what, it's an internal issue, we'll deal with it. Boom. So looks like we lost the feed there for a minute. I'm sorry, folks. So we'll see what happens. That's obviously something that if you're a Cowboys fan, you're going to want to watch over the next couple of weeks. And see, and hopefully it doesn't develop into an issue. Because if it does, then it's something you don't need, especially with all the injuries and all the other issues you already have. All right, so we're going to wind down now. I want to apologize, first of all, for the feed just going out. The camera went out for some reason. I don't know why that happened. Also, I got interrupted. Live show, people. Live hangout, obviously. Live streaming. Anybody can pop in, and anybody can interrupt. And my wife and my niece and my dog decided to come into the room. So I apologize for being a little distracted there for a minute. But anyway, let's start to wind down. The show might be over, but that does not mean you have to stop interacting or contributing to the show. Continue to have your voice heard. Send us feedback, topic ideas, breaking news items, questions, comments, reactions to the show, questions about the show, scheduling of the show. Any of these things you can do via email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. And please remember to use the hashtags, hashtag itspotlight411. Or hashtag ITS5. That's our anniversary hashtag for our 5th anniversary as a podcast. You can also find us on Facebook by searching for In the Spotlight 411. Then when you find our show page, like our page. Obviously, if you're able to check us out live today, you might not have a need for this, but maybe you weren't able to listen. Maybe you weren't able to check out the entire episode. You can, if you need to catch up on any episodes, at least the ones we've had over the last 2 weeks, here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube, or maybe you missed a part of an episode like this one, whatever the case may be, you can check out our episodes on YouTube. Catch up on episodes on YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on YouTube, and you'll be taken to my channel where I have all our shows since we debuted here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube last week. For those that would like to check out some of our shows from before we debuted here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube, head over to talkshoe.com, libsyn.com, blogtalkradio.com. You can also head over to iTunes as well and just search for us under our old title, In the Spotlight with Brian Gardner. That's our old title, and you'll be able to find all of our old shows. Blog Talk Radio has our first 31 episodes of our show. Libsyn and TalkShoe have our shows from the last 5 years. And iTunes has all of our shows from day one as well. So just search for us using our old title, In the Spotlight with Brian Gardner, on any of those sites. And you can check out, especially for some of our newer fans, you can check out some of our old shows and get a sense of who we are and what we've been doing over the years. And again, if you're looking for shows from the last 2 weeks, the only way you can catch up on those is on YouTube. So go to YouTube and search for In the Spotlight 411, and you can catch up on any of our shows from the last 2 weeks on the channel for our show, which is my channel. It's under Brian Gardner. Just search for In the Spotlight 411. You'll be able to find the channel. And it'll be all set for you, and you'll be able to catch up on episodes and check us out. And hopefully we'll have Podbean, and iTunes all set and established. It should be up by Tuesday, and if so, then you can catch up on our shows from that point on, also on Podbean and on iTunes. If you're more of somebody that likes to listen to podcasts that are audio, you can use Podbean and iTunes for that. That's our old format. We want to be able to honor the old format, but also have visual too, and that's why we're doing this. So, visually we'll have Google Hangouts and YouTube. Audio-wise, we'll have Podbean and iTunes, so we cover both bases. So just bear with us. Again, Podbean and iTunes should be ready to go by Tuesday. I'm uploading all of our old episodes to Podbean, so they're all in one place. So I don't have to tell, if people want to check out some of our old episodes, they can do that. So I don't want episodes to be out of order or anything like that. So that's why we're doing it this way. So until everything is uploaded to Podbean, I can't really start uploading new episodes. So once that's all uploaded, hopefully by Tuesday, we'll be able to post the new episodes up. Some of the newer episodes up, the ones from the last couple of weeks. And then any episodes that we put out there, we can have stored on there, and you all can catch up on Podbean and iTunes as well. So, all right. So to those that checked us out live here this afternoon, I do appreciate it. Thank you so much for checking us out live here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube. Again, you can catch up on any of our episodes from the last 2 weeks here on YouTube, on our channel. Just search for In the Spotlight 411, and it'll be on my channel. That's just under my name, Brian Gardner. That's it for this week. This is our last show for this week. Next week, we'll have 3 shows. Of course, our 2 primetime shows, Tuesday and Thursday, both broadcasting live here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Sorry about that. Just dropped my pen here. Both those shows, again, Tuesday, Thursday, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Tuesday will be our sports/wrestling show. So we're, if the World Series is still on, we might be going up against the World Series Game 6. So obviously we'll do some live discussions, some live updates on that throughout the show. And obviously we'll discuss the World Series, everything that's happened within it. We'll talk other sports too, like NBA. We won't do football because, again, that's always for Football Blitz. We don't do that on Tuesday nights. So we'll do maybe NBA. We'll also do, obviously, World Series, any other sports headlines outside of football we have to get to. Also do some wrestling, as we always do on the Tuesday shows. Now on Thursday, of course, our entertainment show, box office, TV, film discussion, all that good stuff. And, of course, at some point next week, it won't be Monday or Tuesday, but maybe Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. More than likely, probably Friday, I'd imagine. We'll have In the Spotlight Football Blitz. So 3 shows coming at you next week. And, of course, Tuesday and Thursday will both be our primetime shows, both broadcasting live at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, the Football Blitz will air sometime either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, more than likely Friday in the afternoon. So keep all that in mind, especially for you newer fans that aren't used to our format. Again, to those of you that were able to check us out live here this afternoon, thank you so much for making us a part of your Friday. And thank you to all of our old fans and new for all that you do for us. We really do appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your contributions, your support, your critiques, your reactions, everything that you do. We really do appreciate your participation in all forms. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. Another great show. Pat myself on the back. That's the thing I do for you new fans out there. That's my thing. I always like to pat myself on the back at the end of a show. So it's very condescending and egotistical, but that's kind of my thing. Ask anybody that's listened to us over the years. That's kind of my thing. Just now you can actually see me do it. But yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks for all that you do. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for watching and for joining us here today. And for those that will be listening to checking this out in archive on YouTube, thank you so much for that. We really do appreciate it. Your support means everything. Your participation means everything. So thank you very much. That's it for this week. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Great Friday, great weekend, great Halloween. Be safe. And a great start to your week next week. We'll see you back here this coming Tuesday night, November the 3rd, election night, at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. That is our next show, broadcasting live here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, have a great afternoon and evening, everybody. and egotistical, but that's kind of my thing. Ask anybody that's listened to us over the years. That's kind of my thing. Just now you can actually see me do it. But yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks for all that you do. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for watching and for joining us here today. And for those that will be listening to checking this out in archive on YouTube, thank you so much for that. We really do appreciate it. Your support means everything. Your participation means everything. So thank you very much. That's it for this week. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Great Friday, great weekend, great Halloween. Be safe. And a great start to your week next week. We'll see you back here this coming Tuesday night, November the 3rd, election night, at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. That is our next show, broadcasting live here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, have a great afternoon and evening, everybody.